It's been a busy 2 months and we missed our April Water Resources Outlook. But Chris, Jeff, and I are back to get you updated and get a first look at the summer forecast in the May edition of the Water Resources Outlook.
Okay, thanks, Todd. Let's start how we always do by looking at the past rainfall. And we see over the last 30 days, the 5-inch rain totals have been confined to the Florida Peninsula and areas west and north of Interstate 85 across the interior southeast. Parts of coastal Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina have seen limited rainfall amounts, with some areas only having observed less than 2 inches, marked by the green shaded coloring there. How does this compare to normal? We look at the departures from normal here and see parts of North Carolina and South Carolina there with plenty of yellow indicating an inch or more of deficit. That strip of 4-inch plus surplus is near and along Interstate 85 there in Georgia. Looks erroneous, but that is actually good data and is an imprint on the 30-day total. That is from the April 18th into 19th severe weather event when we had 5 to 6 inches along that line from near Montgomery, Alabama to just south of Atlanta, which caused some flooding down the Flint River Basin. Since the beginning of the year, how are we looking? Well, here it is, wet across the north and west and dry across the south and east of the interior southeast, with near normal in the Florida Peninsula. Many of the headwaters have stayed wet, and thus this has kept stream flows flowing even downstream and reservoirs at full pool or heading to their summer pool with ease across middle Georgia and the Piedmont of the Carolinas. As we see here, mostly green, which means these locations are flowing in the normal range. Some pockets of blue and light blue, which means above normal levels. And we are seeing that around the Atlanta area and in the upstate of the Carolinas. Again, though we are seeing the upstream headwaters support water resources downstream in the coastal plain where it has been drier. How has this been looking as far as drought? Well, we see some drought increasing across South Georgia and coastal South Carolina, and about a third of the southeast in an abnormally dry condition. So dry weather is not unusual this time of year, and actually this is the time of year we see the least amount of river flooding. Here's the chart showing we are in the week 20 of the year here in mid-May, and the next several weeks are generally quiet when it comes to river flooding in the southeast. The high stream flow period of January through April for most of the southeast and Tennessee and Ohio valleys is coming to an end by mid-May as the vegetation is almost fully bloomed and the jet stream begins to shift north a bit. The exception to this rule for the southeast is the Florida Peninsula, where the convective season rains will begin here soon, and the river flood potential ramps up, especially by mid-June, lasting into the tropical season river flood potential.
We're beginning the period with high pressure across much of the region. Chances for rainfall will increase as we enter the Sunday-Monday time frame as a cold front approaches the area. This will take us into the midterm period, where models are indicating that high pressure will set up again, centered generally over the Carolinas. This will make rainfall more likely over Alabama, Mississippi, and south over Florida, away from the high. Here's the current 7-day rainfall forecast. The highest amounts are over South Florida and over the Alabama-Mississippi area, the areas furthest from the area of high pressure. The long-term outlook shows below normal precipitation across the area due mainly to the area of high pressure that reestablishes itself in the midterm period.
Thank you, Chris. Above normal temperatures are forecast by the Climate Prediction Center along the Gulf and Atlantic coasts in our area. South Florida has the greatest chance of being warmer than normal. The end of Chris's forecast did show some dryness as we approach the end of the month, and the Climate Prediction Center equal chances for above, near normal, and below normal precipitation. We've been wet in Mississippi and Alabama, and I think persistence in the forecast will keep those areas kind of wet. I think they're a little ways away from the above normal, but just because they've been wet, sometimes we tend to be a little bit more wet. And as opposed to that, as we get down into Georgia and Florida Panhandle and South Carolina, where we've been kind of dry, that we might tend to likely be a little bit more dry in those areas. And so I don't think our drought is going anywhere. I think it should at least stabilize, could get a little bit worse over the next month or two. June is just the beginning of our pop-up thunderstorm season, and while those can be beneficial, it's always hard to tell where that heavy rain will set up. Again, this is also begins our flash flooding season, where we see heavy thunderstorms and flash flooding in some areas. So warm temperatures continue for our seasonal outlook, which is it for the summer, going June through August. And I believe for the most part, we're kind of used to being above normal. We've been showing this a lot lately, and we continue to be above normal these last at least few months. As for our precipitation forecast, the area shows equal chances for above, near, and below normal precipitation. Nothing in the models to lean one way or the other. However, most of the rest of the country is leaning towards above normal. With the nature of summer rainfall, some areas could receive some above normal rainfall, and as Jeff mentioned, we are heading into wet season for Central and South Florida. It is not unusual to see flooding in those areas during this time. For the peak of hurricane season and into the fall, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia look to be a little bit more wet in that area, and even as we get into the Western Carolinas, maybe a little above normal potential. Time will tell, but we'll talk about this a little bit more as we approach that time, likely in the August Water Resources Outlook. So Jeff, with all that being said, it kind of looks like our summer's going to be pretty close to normal, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it really looks like we have two stories to tell here. The southeast interior, we've been wet since the winter and spring, and a little bit drier here in the late spring. And then stream flows are still high. And so we have a little bit of elevated flood threat here going into early summer.
So, like, our pools are high. I mean, like you said, we've come out of the spring and our pools are high. So we're in good shape drought-wise for the rivers, it looks like, at least the ones that have reservoirs at the top.
Yes, that's definitely what we're seeing.
That's
that
good.
even though we have some dry areas, as far as water resources, we're doing pretty well.
That's good. Well, and I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see some spotty type drought stuff and everything else, and especially right now along the coast, just we haven't seen the rainfall, even though we've got water in the rivers right now.
Yeah. Now, the Florida Peninsula is our other story. As we go into mid-June, we start to see the convective season kick in and their thunderstorm activity increase. And that is their typical flood season here as we go into June, and that lasts into the tropical season.
Well, and you showed that when you were looking at the rainfall. South Florida's already started to see a little bit of that with some convective and a little bit above normal just recently. So that's good news heading into their wet season.
Yeah, but overall, I think you're right on. I think we're both in agreement that normal looks like a normal threat for the river flood season for most of the southeast.
Sounds good. Well, the bottom line, in the short term, looks like below normal rainfall really in the short term, and quieter than it has been, where we've been pretty busy over most of the southeast. Things are going to get a little quieter. As for the long term, normal summer rainfall for the summer for the southeast U.S. And rainy season beginning in Florida. We plan to record our next Water Resources Outlook on June 19th, 2019. Thank you.